had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. The palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known.
So many of you have probably seen that clip, the full clip. Of course, you can go to Project Veritas. That's Amy Robach, I believe, yes, from Good Morning America, ABC News. I want to, if you haven't seen that, go watch the full clip, but I want to show a more recent clip with our guest, who will be on in a second, when they ask for a response from producers. Here you go.
Well, Mr. Golson, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas. We have footage of Amy Robach saying that ABC News executives killed her Jeffrey Epstein story some years ago. Do you have a comment, sir?
I don't.
Do you have a comment?
I do not have a comment.
I'm going to play the footage for you, sir.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is.
That's Amy Robach speaking, sir.
Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll give you a comment as soon as we've had a look at it.
We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate.
Well, she said her Jeffrey Epstein story was killed some years ago. She said that she had the story, but ABC News executives told her they squashed it. So if you have a comment, sir, now would be a good time.
I don't have a comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here to talk, but I should mention, we were taping a Trump sketch not long ago. Weren't planning on doing this interview today, but our guests made some time. Of course, please support them at Project Veritas. You can go watch more content. Mr. James O'Keefe, thank you for taking the time, sir.
Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you, and I apologize for the raccoon eyes here. I know I look like a crazy person. This was not. This wasn't on the schedule, as it were. Before we get into this, the whole Epstein scandal, because this is the #1 story everywhere. We were just talking about this off air. Provide a little bit of context for maybe some people who don't know who Amy Robach is and why this is so significant, because it is mind blowing. But I don't want to misrepresent anything and get anyone into legal hot water, as I have a tendency to do.
Well, and if I look down, I have the transcript of Amy's remarks, because I'm fond of saying, Stephen, that the tape speaks for itself. And in this case, this is I think it's pretty mind-blowing, because she's so honest. I think she comes across so well on this tape. I don't think we're exposing Amy here. I think this is a hot mic moment. This is how these people really feel and behave and think. And you kind of really see the anger and the frustration in her voice, because, I mean, put yourself in her shoes. She's flying these victims across the country. This is 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the executives squashed the story. She says they spiked the story. And she's so upset because she had the story. So she says, and I'm going to read some of these quotes here. She says, "It's unbelievable what we had on Clinton. We had everything." She says, I think he was killed 100%. She's talking about Jeff Epstein. And then that's why I really believe it, like I really believe it. So the context is, she's an anchor for Good Morning America. We have an insider, and I'll give you some information that maybe I haven't given anybody else. We have multiple insiders inside of ABC News who are, I think that frustrated is an understatement. They're pissed at management. They're angry at ABC News executives. You saw us chasing down the president of ABC News in the street. After we did that, Stephen, that was late last week, executive reached out to me directly. ABC News gave us a comment. That comment appears to be written by lawyers. It's very milquetoast, you know. Yeah. The exact opposite of what Amy is saying in this tape, this lawyerly statement. So a lot of things happening. And what's remarkable is that the left loves this story. Ocasio-Cortez tweeted it. It's like a #1 story on BBC News. Yeah. The Palace in England is putting pressure on ABC. So a lot of things to talk about here. Yeah,
I think, you know, when I first heard about what you were going to leak, I thought this was going to be a leaked tape, you know, of like Jeff Epstein saying like, "Oh, hey, Hillary, ha," you know, and it's going to be clear he was murdered. So at first I was like, this is disappointing. And then when I watched the whole thing, I thought, wow, this is about the arguably biggest, or one of the biggest news networks in the world, punting, systematically punting a story that absolutely, considering what they covered, with far less evidence, with Kavanaugh, with Smollett, They had no interest in covering whatsoever. And like you said, I don't think this is exposing Amy. She was frustrated because these were orders coming from the top down. And her mentioning Clinton specifically, when I did my research, and I thought, what, this is about as damning as it gets.
Yeah, if you had substituted the word Clinton for Trump, we had everything. We had these women. It would be universally condemned even by the right.
Right.
And you point out it's about Kavanaugh. It's about there's this, I can't remember the accuser who accused Trump of something in the last week. And the allegations are aired. They're credible allegations. So this is, I mean, I haven't seen one liberal. I got a guy from Progress Now, Colorado saying, I hate O'Keefe, but this is great reporting. So it's one of those things where the president of ABC News sent someone to our office and gave us a very serious comment. We have these insiders, Stephen, who reach out to us now. These people do not reach out to the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News. They don't trust those people. They're so angry. And
are they still inside at ABC News, by the way?
Yes.
They're still there?
Multiple.
Okay.
Now, apparently there's paranoia happening inside ABC News today. They're looking for the leaker.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Of course. But they're spending so much time trying to find the person or persons who leaked this rather than actually address the substance of the thing. So the good news for us is that as long as they have that mentality where they're going to try to continue to squash, cover up, not actually reform their lack of journalistic behaviors, there will always be more information coming out in the future. And I think you'll see another tape from these insiders leaking to us.
Every now and then we have quote unquote insiders reach out to us and we say, well, you know what, we do a late night show and we just had a crack addicted puppet. So you should probably go to James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. Those are the guys you want to talk with about this. But
I'm very serious about this. I go across the United States and I want to give you guys a compliment because I speak to Texas A&M and these places and everyone comes up and says, I watch Crowder is my main, I'm serious, my main source of news. These are kids, they're 18 to 22. They say Ben Shapiro, Steve Crowder, and of course, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are watching this right now. A lot of kids, a lot of people working for Google or what have you. Come to us. We will work with you. It's fully legal if you're on the inside. If you're a person who just wants to be a journalist, Stephen, a lot of people are saying, well, I'm really upset that James O'Keefe broke this story and not my favorite New York Times reporter.
Right.
And I'm saying, well, there's a reason for that, because people don't feel comfortable going to the New York Times. So go to projectveritas.com/brave and submit your thing to us, and we'll work with you.
And I want to talk about this for a second, journalism, because we hear it obviously tossed around from the left. First they coined fake news, and then Donald Trump jiu-jitsu'd it, and they accuse them of fake news. And conservatives often say, well, there is no journalism on the left. But here's something that's important here. Yeah, we can just point to the hypocrisy, right, of the Kavanaugh accusers, the Covington Catholic school students, especially with Jussie Smollett. It was ABC News. They ran the exclusive interview where Jussie Smollett explained that he was the victim of a hate crime, and they handled it with a straight face. So that's very important. We can point out the double standard, but here's something else. When you're talking about this is from years ago, this information. People who tend to run pedophile rings, they don't operate alone. Who knows if this story would have been run while Jeffrey Epstein was alive, or while this information would have been maybe less of a cold trail, if it could have stopped any other active pedophiles who might have been involved. Right. That is important. That is what we're going to talk about. Aaron Brockovich with some tap water. How about an actual pedophile island and journalists out there taking a vested interest in the American public, making sure that these predators are fingered out in the public?
I mean, let me quote Amy Robach from this Hot Mic Good Morning America tape of her. She says, quote, Jeff Epstein made his whole living blackmailing people. Yep, there were a lot of men on those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men. And what's interesting is that she would never say these things on the air because the network executives, and the tape is still there. They have these tapes. Why don't they just air them?
Right.
You make a good point. It's a cover-up. It may be a criminal issue. The FBI, some people have said the FBI should be involved with James Goldston, president of ABC News. What did they know and when did they know it? And who are these people that contacted them? Listen, it's a big story, and you have to remember that the media is complicit in all of this. The media has more power than the government here. And that's why we think this is an Epstein cover-up. The media is the story, Stephen, and there's more, more insiders are coming to us today. We had a new insider with an ABC News contact us and leak us memorandums in the network.
Well, then we should probably put a moratorium on the word paranoid for people at NBC. They're just concerned about what's actually happening.
Why don't they just reform the actual behavior? People always say, James, aren't you worried someone's going to infiltrate Project Veritas? And I say, I have to behave. Like there are 6 jurors on this shoulder and 6 jurors on this shoulder at all times. I have to behave with such a degree of ethics and integrity that I'm not paranoid. This is the world we live in. If you're worried about your expectation of privacy, guess what? You have no privacy.
Right.
You can just take out your phone and hit a button these days. But instead of reforming the behaviors, they seem to be covering up the behavior. But I think this one's different. I think we've reached a critical mass on this one, where there's a movement of insiders now coming out of the woodwork, Stephen.
Yes, and I think that a lot of people will take this just as license to go on about Jeffrey Epstein's death, which I don't think is conspiratorial at this point to say that we certainly don't have all of the answers, largely because we don't have all of the answers. And I don't mean that as a Jesse Ventura, well, I'm just asking questions. Like, we literally don't have the tape, and there are medical examiners who said, well, this is more in line with some kind of a homicide than a suicide. I haven't had time, again, hence the crazy makeup and hair. I apologize to people out there. So I haven't had time to do the research, but I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar that they probably have run some specials on these nightly shows there at ABC about sex trafficking and sex rings. I've seen them all the time where they say, it could happen to you. It's closer than you think. And they run this out there to virtue signal. Meanwhile, they have information on arguably the most prolific sexual predator that we've known in the United States, and tied to very, very powerful people. This is why this is so important, because when we talk about Me Too, right, and at one point, that was when we had Kavanaugh, I said, hold on, there does need to be due process with Me Too. We can't just go out there, a torch and pitchfork mob. Their premise was these are powerful men, people in power, so they need to be questioned. It seems that doesn't apply to some of the most powerful men on the face of the earth as long as they're on the right political side. Because I can't think of a story beyond someone who has ties with global leaders, former presidents, who was running a pedophile ring. This is not alleged. We know that this was a man who engaged in pedophilia and actually had a ring, an organization that was running pedophilia for other people. Right. Actively, I can't imagine a story that would be more important for journalists. I mean, what's required to get a Pulitzer?
Right.
I mean, she says it. I'm going to read this quote. Virginia Roberts, that's the woman accusing Epstein. She told me everything, says Amy Robach of ABC's Good Morning America. Quote, she had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. So they did their jobs as journalists, and that's why she's so upset. I mean, imagine if you spent months of your time, great journalism, convincing these people to have the bravery to go on camera, to sit, and she talks. And then ABC spikes the story. And so I have people working for me who work in the television industry now, and it's pretty extraordinary. You have to go back to Jeffrey Wigand, the 60 Minutes guy in the 90s, that they were putting pressure on CBS from the tobacco industry. It's a pretty extraordinary thing. And I think your point is there has to be the same standard. If you want to air allegations uncorroborated from about Kavanaugh and about Trump, but you're not going to run those allegations against Jeffrey Epstein. Why is that?
Yeah. And I think an important differentiation, by the way, we just had another story yesterday. People can search this. I don't have overlays today. Again, wasn't planning on this interview. But another lady came out and said that she created a story regarding Kavanaugh. It's tough to keep track because there were so many people who came out of the woodwork. After Kavanaugh became a Supreme Court justice, the stories went away. Whereas after the death of Epstein, more and more information is coming to light. They're not going away. It only gets worse. I think people need to understand this is not a right or left issue. That's a stark and frightening contrast.
And it's infuriating to people who are working in the media, whether it's the CNN insiders who gave us those audio tapes you saw last month, that's the Jeff Zucker phone calls, whether it's these people inside ABC News. I can't give you any information about who they are because I'd give them up, but they said to me, James, this was so infuriating to us to know this. So in other words, you have very good people working in media. You don't have bad people. They're not necessarily even liberal people or right wing. They're just people working for this crappy, I would say, corrupt organ of propaganda that manufactures the public's consent. And I think you're seeing, I'm very serious about this. I think we're reaching a tipping point in this country. If we haven't reached it yet, we're almost there, where they can maybe stop, they can plug this hole, they can let what's that alligator game where you're banging all the alligators?
Well, it's like whack-a-mole, but another one you're thinking of, they also have it with alligators.
They can whack all the, we got to cover up this leak. But then there's an army of 100 insiders within CBS, ABC, CNN, New York Times that are disgusted by how corrupt it is. ProjectVeritas.com/brave. We will protect you. I will have your back no matter what. And I'm very encouraged to see that these patriots who are not conservative, they're just people who are upset about what's going on. And I think there's going to be more to come.
Well, I think particularly the Epstein suicide story, like you mentioned, AOC tweeted out obviously some of this information, these videos, but the Epstein suicide story seems to have really united both the right and the left here. That's pretty remarkable. So it seems to me this could be that sort of watershed moment.
That's right.
Let me ask: do you have any ideas to who specifically, or do you know who specifically tried to pressure Robach to punt the story?
I mean, there's a very few people in ABC News. I mean, the most powerful people in ABC News. You're looking at the executive producer of Good Morning America and the president of ABC News. That person's, these names, you can find them. They're public information. Chris Vlasto is the former executive producer, and the president of ABC News, his name is James Goldston. I will say, Stephen, Chris Vlasto is very. He cooperated with me. He came. He talked to me. He came to my office. We had some off-the-record conversations, but we got a comment, and I would say it was the president of ABC News, James Goldston. It's not like Disney, the board of directors at Disney got involved in editorial decisions, maybe not, but definitely James Goldston is the individual. You can tweet at him. I've been talking to him all day. We confronted him on the street. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the room with James Goldston when he was talking to his various friends, powerful buddies who, as Amy says, were on those airplanes. Alan Dershowitz is another name, Stephen, that was mentioned. He's actually a pretty libertarian guy.
Right.
His politics notwithstanding, I would suspect that somehow maybe he was implicated in this. I don't know. It's Amy's saying these things on the hot mic.
Right. And she came out with a statement afterwards trying to say this isn't really as big of a deal as it's being made out to be. No one ever told me not to run the story. It seems very much like a boilerplate response.
I think it was probably written by somebody else, a $50,000 per word statement by Amy Robach there. But the comment
just Alan Dershowitz with some sticky notes. Here.
Here. Quote, this is Amy Robach's statement today. Quote, in the years since, no one has ever told me or the team to stop reporting on Jeffrey Epstein. It was literally the opposite of what she says in this tape.
Right.
I mean, come on. I mean, this is so obviously written by lawyers that it's not even worth really taking seriously.
Well, here's the thing to me too, as we look at this, because I don't want to get into the Epstein, sort of conspiracies regarding the suicide. I don't think he killed himself. That's just me. I don't have any answers, but this is my opinion. That's not what James is here to talk about. But considering that this information was withheld for so long, and like we said, it could have potentially saved people from victimization. Yeah. Would it be unrealistic to think that there's probably more information regarding the Epstein case? Could even be just people who visited the island or the apartment.
That is a great point. Think about conspiracy. By the way, they call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't publish journalism unless you can see the person's lips moving. I don't manufacture quotes. I don't print hearsay. This is what journalists do. I don't do that. Right. I only publish information if you can see their face and watch their lips making the comments. But you make a very astute observation. This tape did exist of Amy Robach at Good Morning America. It was on their server or wherever, and a source leaked it to us. There are other tapes. There is other iPhone recordings, audio and video, of conversations with these quote unquote powerful people on these quote unquote airplanes, traveling to and fro. And I bet you there is someone watching this right now who has access to that going, oh my God, should I give this to Project Veritas or is it going to blow me? And I will say to you that you can send us a private encrypted message. There's a thing called encryption on Proton Mail or Signal. We will protect you and I will take the arrows. I will not give you up. And I think it's very important that other people come out. That's what I'm talking about, the watershed moment. That there are people out there infuriated, they're indignant, and they want people to see it. So I think it's a very astute observation.
It really has come down to, what else do we not know? If we know that this was withheld, and it could have been withheld in a period of years, again, where it could have stopped additional sex trafficking, for all we know. We don't. I have to say everything. I have to hedge it with "for all we know," because we don't know a whole lot. But when you contrast this with, remember, obviously the Donald Trump tape, the grab me, that was a big deal.
Right.
But remember, for a long time they said we also have tapes of him using the N-word on the set of that was a big thing. Him using racial slurs. I mean, if this lives on right at ABC for a long time, this is still in their video logs. This is an off-mic moment. If those other tapes existed,
that's exactly right,
regarding Donald Trump,
yes.
You don't think for a second that they would be releasing those?
Yeah.
I think nature abhors a vacuum, and I think what's going to happen is that I don't call it the free market, but there's this effect where this tape was leaked to somebody. But the thing, Stephen, is that they have no place to go. These sources cannot go to the New York Times. They don't trust them.
Right.
So there has to be an outlet where people can come to. It's projectveritas.com/brave. I keep pitching it to you because in the last 24 hours, we have had 6 new people within news networks reach out to me. So to your point is very well made. They're there. They've got the access. They're just afraid. Yeah. And I think a lot of people go through life wanting to eliminate risk. They worry about the secondary effects of publishing information. They're coming after their children or what have you. But I think the people are so angry right now that they're putting their love for citizens having the public right to know what is going on above their own concern about their own safety. Yeah. That is what is happening right now in this country. And I think it's a great thing to behold. I think when you see these stories go viral.
Yeah, I think there are 2 through lines here. Yeah, I think there's risk aversion, but I also think it's about accountability because they're not averse to taking risks as far as you see how many whistleblowers come forward, anonymous whistleblowers, whether it's Russia, whether it's Russian collusion, whether it's impeachment, right? They can go. They know they have plenty of places to go. They can go to the New York Times. They can go to NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC because they will be protected, and this will be run as a completely legitimate story, even if it's not videographic evidence, even if it's not proof, even if it's hearsay. These whistleblowers, they're lauded as heroes for these stories for which we have no evidence. But in this case, it's that they're risk averse because there's accountability, but in a negative way. There's accountability if they run a story that can hurt the DNC establishment and by proxy, traditional media. They're not afraid of leaking. They're just afraid of leaking these kinds of stories. And that's what is so frustrating and sickening.
It's the double standards, and the left is starting to see it. They talk about democracy dies in darkness and the truth is more important than ever. But in reality, a lot of people that work for these companies are angry at their management. Amy Robach is a very good journalist. She's a very serious anchor woman, and she did all this reporting. And that's what we hear. We heard it in the CNN tapes. People are angry. They're infuriated. They're righteously indignant, to borrow Andrew Breitbart's book title. And they're coming out. Yeah. So I think there's a new breed of heroes in this country. In this world of illusion and quasi-illusion, there's the honest cop, the honest school teacher, the honest satellite upload technician for CNN, and they are the new whistleblowers, the citizen whistleblowers. It's not like this 30-year-old leaker in the government with the Ukraine hearsay, or Bob Woodward's anonymous sources who are quoting other people. These are people who are risking their careers. These people will never work in media again, right? If they're found out. But they believe in something greater than themselves. And I believe that we are at the dawn of a new era. And I know that you have millions of people watch this. This is a very, very serious broadcast because you have so many people in this country watching right now. And they're going, you know what? Should I send my iPhone recording to James O'Keefe? Yeah. Do I want to risk it? And I will tell you that you should. ProjectVeritas.com/brave or VeritasTips@ProtonMail.com. And we will protect you. Yeah. I will have your back. I've never lost a lawsuit, Stephen. I've been sued 20 times. I've never lost, and we're going to fight them all the way to the end.
Yes, sorry, you're hearing my dog growl here. Hopper is here because, as well, again, he's usually not in the studio when we have guests. This is just kind of tossed together here at the last minute. No, I also think if people are looking to go into journalism, listen, they need to look at what we're talking about here. They need to look at what's happening online. They need to look at even people like Andy Ngo with Antifa. That was another story that wasn't covered. And they need to look at, understand the context, understand sort of the subtext with Amy here when she's talking out of frustration. She is not a villain, but It does show you that if you want to go into journalism because you want to tell the stories that matter, listen, right now, James can speak completely freely. You can speak completely freely. I can speak completely freely. If you work in a traditional media outlet, you cannot plan to do honest journalism. It is forbidden. It's not allowed. And I think people need to understand that now, that these same people who want the gatekeepers, big tech, to cover which stories are legitimate, which stories are fake news online, they want that curated. They also, I think, I don't even remember, it was some conservative never-Trumper who was saying, we need that with media. It's important because now everyone can get their media out there. We need these gatekeepers. Well, listen, there you go, folks. This is the kind of gatekeeping that's always been the case, by the way, in traditional media. It's just that now people like you are able to showcase it. You cannot plan to do honest journalism at a place like ABC or CNN. If it's an inconvenient story, they won't allow it.
But the content is king. You know, Disney is trying to, we are the #1 trending thing on Twitter, you know, today. And Disney was trying to do something. And their paid advertising campaign trended less than the Epstein video. So content is king. If you got videotape, it's going to get up to, but I think there's a symbiotic relationship between those in power and who they're reporting on. That's what even Noam Chomsky said that, right?
Yeah,
symbiotic
he's crazy.
Relationship. But it's also, we go there. Like we actually, like Andy Ngo and Amy Robach actually fly to the location, interview the witnesses, take out their camera. I mean, so much of journalism now is like Googling and tweeting. Right. And you got to stop Googling and tweeting and actually go do the shoe leather thing. You have to actually go. And you've done that. We did
it once with before anyone else was doing Antifa. We went to Antifa in Utah where they were handing out axe picks and they were getting sawed-off shotguns for a Ben Shapiro event, claiming he was a Nazi. We have the footage of them handing us a knife and an ice pick. And there was a guy there, I can't remember his name, the guy who had that panic attack on air. Was it 60 Minutes or 2020? He was there. He saw us handing the footage over to the police, showing them the footage, going, there, that's the knife, there, that's the stun gun, which, by the way, was later taken from the girl who was arrested that night. And this person from, I believe it was ABC, it was either Dateline or 60 Minutes or 2020, I can't remember exactly. He said, oh, I'm not interested. I said, hey, hold on a second, we have this story. He said, no, I'm not interested. We gave it to all the local news there in Utah. They said, no, we're not interested. And I will tell you this, I've always known about bias from an entertainment standpoint in the entertainment industry. But that was the first time we had accidentally stumbled across journalism. And it was remarkable that not 80, 90, 100% of journalists in the area covering that event had no interest in videographic evidence of someone committing a felony, which, by the way, led to their arrest. None of them. So I can only imagine the kind of life that you live, James. You must have to sleep with not one eye open, both. Can you do the sleep where you do the with both eyes open? No.
No, I need 8 hours a night of sleep, but I think the way they threaten you now is through litigation. That's how they really try to get to us. They've failed. We haven't lost a lawsuit in 2 years, but I commend you for going there. I think what's Vice used to have a Times Square advertisement. This is Vice Media, and their selling motto was "We go there." Imagine how broken the media must be when your unique value proposition is to actually go to the location you're reporting on.
And it was a goof. We were going for a goof. We didn't think it would be that big a deal.
Fell in our lap.
Well, let me ask you this: you just mentioned something interesting about Disney's their promoted story on Twitter.
Yes.
Are you, because live action is not allowed to promote at all on Twitter?
Yeah.
We're not allowed. I'm not allowed to promote at all because the campaigns that Twitter created themselves was then deemed a violation of Twitter's advertising campaign. Can Project Veritas advertise on Twitter? Are you guys allowed?
No, I'm not even verified. I don't have a blue check.
Veritas is unverified.
I've got 650,000 followers, maybe less than you, but I'm not verified. I think, by the way, not being verified and having that many followers and doing this, that's the new verified, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but
right.
I have it. You can't see it, but I have
thanks
on
for
Twitter.
the insult there. I appreciate it.
No. We got
verified.
#1 trend, Epstein cover-up, and then #2, Disney Plus. So I mean, this is I want to take. Everyone's so cynical out there. They're so upset about how bad things are in social media. But think about it for a minute. They hate me. They shadow ban, so forth and so on. The story is the #1 trend.
Right.
And Disney. I mean, you want to talk about messing with powerful people? Disney's brand advertising campaign is not even as high of a trend as our YouTube video today.
Right.
So my point to you is that the story is good enough.
Yeah.
If the content is strong enough, and if you have, and I'm going to say something, but I'm going to say it because I'm very passionate. If you got the bastards dead to rights, you will be the #1 trending thing on Twitter, even today in Silicon Valley. So the trick is, Steve, we got to get the content. We got to have the insiders come to us.
That is absolutely true. However, I will say this, because this broke through right today, and it was #1 trend. But if you add it up cumulatively, right, Disney, they can run ads, and ABC and NBC, they can run ads, but
yes.
we can't run ads, and you can't run ads, and live action can't run ads. You do have to wonder how many stories would be at the top of trending if not being buried for the paid trends. And that's important, because when they say they're banning all political ads, right? Well, no one on the right, no one on the left can ban political ads. Okay, what about Disney? What about ABC? What about NBC, CBS?
Yes.
By the way, you're talking about a Disney paid trend. This story of yours, ABC, it's a Disney-owned parent company, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't want to be conspiratorial, but the fact that they bought out the top trend or attempted to while this was coming out, like, that's important. People need to understand it's not just about politicians buying ads, but giant media entities, because they will do everything they can to silence independent voices.
But what you just said, Disney buying out the trend today. That in conspiracies, there are people involved in it. I don't know. Let's say there's 17 people, like the assistant that works for the assistant general counsel at Disney goes, well, that's corrupt. Right. That's corrupt. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to take a screenshot of all these secret documents about buying trends because of the Epstein video, and I'm going to send that to Project Veritas. Yeah. That's how we change the world. That's a chain of events. Project Veritas, I keep pitching this, and I'm sorry.
No, I want you to. It's very important.
ProjectVeritas.com/brave. If you're the assistant that works in the general counsel's office for Disney, and you're buying the trend today that's underneath our trend to try to black it out, again, I'm assuming that's what's happening, then send us the secret documentation.
Whether that's what's happening or not, it still is an unfair playing field for Jack to say, well, we're just going to ban political ads, but then ban individual conservatives from running ads. We talked about this yesterday. Live action, do you know they can't run ads on Twitter unless they remove all ultrasound pictures from their website, not on Twitter. So if they do that, but allow major news entities or multimedia entities like, Disney? Disney, of course, owns ABC. Yes. Then you have Viacom, and of course, we've run up against NBC, Comcast, Vox. I mean, it really is. It doesn't require a conspiracy with so many people to be in on it. For me, my litmus test for conspiracies, like if you look at Area 51, you go, well, how many underlings have to be in on that who never broke their silence? Yeah. With something like this, it's Jack Dorsey in a room with 4 people. That's really all that's required. It doesn't need to be some kind of a net with yarn.
It could be 3 people or 4 people. But I think the thing about the paragon of investigative journalism is we have to act as what's been called the custodians of conscience. We test and affirm what is and what is not an affront to people. We shake them awake. Right. And Amy Robach she's not a right-winger. No. But she was sitting there, and her conscience said to herself, you know what, this is wrong. And even in that agreement with those 4 or 5 people, one of those people their conscience is going to get the best of them. And they're going to go, this is wrong. And I just believe that we're at a time in history right now where because of social media, because of the digital ability to get things out instantaneously to 1 million people in a New York minute, I think there's going to be a movement of these heroic people that put knowledge of what is going on above their own sacrifice. People always say to me, do I fear for my life? I do not. I do not think about that. I take precautions of which I will not get into publicly. But no, I don't fear for my life. Because I'm so passionate. Yeah. We are so passionate about informing people. We actually get a kick out of it. We enjoy doing these stories. And I think there's a lot of people out there who go through life. They go through having the comforts of life and, protecting their own sense of security. But I think that's changing right now. I really do. And I hope that people out there are willing to come public with more information.
And I think it's an important point you make that obviously this is why we've always championed sort of back when it was new media. Now it's just media, but that's also why you're seeing big tech, the most powerful companies in the history of the world. And I mean that. I mean in the history of the world as far as controlling what information is delivered. Right now they keep trying to change the rules because like you said, you can blast it out in a New York minute. You used to be able to. You can today mostly, but you still have to cut through a lot of fog. You know that it's an uphill battle. Same thing with us. They want to change that playing field. Let me ask you this final question. Do you think there's more information to come out here with Epstein that we don't have access to yet, if you have to bet?
I'm 100%. I'm 100% on the record, 100%.
Okay. I didn't want to get you in legal hot water, but
I have so many sources. All these sources are coming to me like as I'm sitting here with you right here. There are sources pinging me and texting me through Veritas tips at protonmail.com is how they come to us. So yes, the answer is yes. This is by order of magnitude the biggest story I've ever seen us break in terms of the virality of it. I'm going to let it breathe for 24 hours, and then you'll hear from Project Veritas this week.
Yeah, I think the Epstein story, not only is it the biggest story that you've broken, obviously, in relation to Epstein, but I think that the Epstein scandal could be could be the biggest story as it relates to the scandal of American media and the failure to do their job.
That's well put. That's well said, and I think you're going to see more come out. Yes.
What does it take, guys? What does it take if not known pedophiles? What does it take for you to do your job? You guys let me know, because if that isn't it, well then don't blame us when we don't trust you. All right, that is James O'Keefe. It is projectveritas.com/brave, and please do go and watch all the content, the clips in their entirety. James,
and apply to be a journalist and apply to work for us if you want to do real reporting at projectveritas.com/brave.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, or do consider joining Mug Club at louderwithcrowder.com/Mug Club, because this is how we do our show and our journalism, because we've been demonetized for a whole long time now, and that's not coming back. Also, I know you're asking yourself, was I actually doing a Donald Trump sketch, or did I merely fall asleep on a sundial wearing my Ray-Bans? For the answer to that, tune into the Thursday live stream. That's every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.